Welcome to the HICS Activation and Command course. This training describes the process for determining when a hospital's ICS-based Emergency Operations Plan, or EOP, should be activated. It also covers some of the immediate command functions that will be performed upon EOP activation. The Emergency Operations Plan is the blueprint that supports all of the needs and activities of hospital staff responding to and recovering from an emergency event. The plan utilizes the Incident Command System to manage all of the vital activities so staff can perform their job in a safe and productive manner. The EOP should be viewed as the essential link between what needs to be done and how to get it accomplished. By activating the EOP in the earliest stages of an event, hospital leadership are afforded the time necessary to shift their focus and priorities temporarily away from everyday business to the problem at hand. In most cases, EOP activation does not require any additional staff to be called in or commitment of resources beyond assigning one person to take charge, the incident commander. Before putting an emergency plan into action, an organization must describe the conditions or triggers required for its activation. The activation process begins with incident recognition and develops into a readiness and response hierarchy that is based on the level of impact. The EOP activation criteria need to be clearly defined and well understood by all employees. In some cases, only components of the EOP will need to be activated, including just the use of the Incident Command System. The EOP activation threshold should be established low enough to ensure that the plan is activated early and often. Any incident that impacts or could potentially impact normal operations at your hospital should trigger implementation of the Emergency Operations Plan. This allows for rapid escalation of response and an almost routine incident management practice. Escalation naturally leads to de-escalation and finally incident termination and post-response evaluation and reporting. Plan activation begins with incident or situation recognition. This involves deciding at what point a reported event or increased demand for hospital services transitions from a routine to a non-routine emergency situation. That point differs by each organization's available resources and is based on the anticipated impact of the event on hospital operations. Such impact can range from very minor incidents which only key staff requires notification to major impact events that disrupt nearly all hospital activities. These major events require the undivided focus of most, if not all, leadership and staff. By activating the EOP, the incident commander is delegated to stop what he or she is doing, focus on fulfilling the functions of being the incident commander, and begin assessing the situation to determine further needs and actions. While the incident commander is making this determination, the staff continues to act and respond in their current capacity. Because of its flexibility and modularity, the ICS can and should be used for an incident or event of any size or scope. There should be no financial or administrative obstacles to activating the plan for even the smallest event that falls outside the norm. For one hospital, that might mean a surge of 10 patients in the emergency department. For another, it may mean the sudden arrival of 30 patients. In the past, many hospitals only activated their emergency operation plans, previously referred to as disaster plans, for designated large-scale events. When the plan was activated, it was for a specific hazard, but was not scalable. So when the plan was activated, all personnel were called in, resulting in costly mobilization of resources, largely beyond the needs of all but the most extreme event. All work in the hospital was impacted as it shifted to disaster mode. As a result, plan activation was viewed as being costly and disruptive, and therefore used infrequently, typically only during drills or scheduled exercises. As a result, staff familiarity with incident management was limited only to those individuals delegated with this responsibility. A better practice is for plans to be all-hazard and management-focused in their design, so that the response is standardized, flexible, and scalable to the event. The optimal plan no longer hinges on the specific hazards of the incident. Rather, it describes the use of the ICS and the deployment and management of capabilities and resources required to respond to and recover from an event. Regardless of the circumstances, any event that poses a potential impact to the hospital's normal operations should trigger EOP activation at some level. A commonly used method to allow for flexibility and effective response to the full range of possible incidents is to have tiered levels of plan activation that correspond in some degree to the various categories of incident types developed by the National Incident Management System. These incident types were developed to assist planners with resource allocation decisions, as well as help make strategic incident management team appointments based on perceived complexity and anticipated impact of an incident. They range from least complex, minor impact Type 5 incidents to very complex, major impact Type 1 incidents. The incident type corresponds to both the number of resources required and the expected incident duration. For example, a Type 5 incident may only require 1 or 2 single resources with up to 6 personnel. Command and general staff positions other than the incident commander are not activated. This type of incident is usually contained within a few hours and doesn't require a written incident action plan. Examples of a Type 5 incident include the arrival of 1 or 2 contaminated patients requiring decontamination, a tornado warning, or a violent patient encounter. A Type 4 incident requires the activation of additional command and general staff positions and several single resources to mitigate the incident, but is usually limited to 1 operational period. For these types of incidents, no written incident action plan is required, but an operational briefing should be completed. Examples of a Type 4 incident include the arrival of 5 to 10 contaminated patients, notification by EMS of a building fire, or a school bus accident with injuries. A Type 3 incident is typically a more complex event requiring activation of some or all of the command and general staff positions, as well as supervisor and unit leader positions. The community's Emergency Operations Center is typically activated, and a significant number of resources are assigned for an event that may require many operational periods to contain the incident. A written incident action plan may be required for each operational period. Examples of a Type 3 incident include a chemical leak with evacuation, tropical storm or hurricane, or an active shooter situation. Type 2 and Type 1 incidents are of higher magnitude and complexity, requiring multiple ICS position activations with the anticipation that the incident will go into multiple operational periods. These incidents have state and regional implications, such as a major flood, earthquake, terrorist attack, or widespread infectious disease outbreak. In categorizing emergencies or events by incident type or impact expected, alert, notification only, minor, moderate, or major, hospital leadership can proactively commit the corresponding management and staffing resources necessary to minimize the incident's impact and enhance its outcome. For this approach to be effective, the anticipated NIMS incident type and level of EOP activation must be closely aligned based on the impact the event is having or is likely to have. Activating in this fluid manner helps ensure that resources, staffing, and material are appropriately aligned with anticipated needs. The number of tiers or levels may vary based on the size of the hospital and number of yearly emergency department visits. A smaller facility may use 2 levels of activation, while a larger hospital may use 4. Regardless of the number of activation levels used, a tiered approach is preferable to the traditional on-off switch for activating the plan, which often wastes resources and discourages plan use. For all levels of EOP activation, The focus should be on maintaining business as usual to the extent possible. For a Level 4 or 3 EOP activation, only the department or function immediately affected by the incident typically experiences activity disruptions. This might mean the engineering department has to break away from normal duties to investigate a fire alarm. Or perhaps the emergency department experiences temporary overcrowding and longer wait times as a result of casualties received from a multiple vehicle highway collision. For a Level 2 EOP activation, there is wider disruption to the organization as the event's impact extends beyond a single function or department. Even at this level, portions of the organization may still be able to maintain their normal business operations. For a Level 1 EOP activation, most or all of the organization's resources are focused on managing the incident. It is important to remember that EOP activation levels exist on a sliding scale, and the response can be escalated or de-escalated by the incident commander as conditions change. The Emergency Operations Plan should describe criteria for activating the plan at each level. Activation criteria are not prescriptive. Rather, they are guidelines to assist hospital leadership in mobilizing hospital resources to match the nature and scope of the event. It may be useful to describe an example of an incident that would trigger EOP activation at each level. It is also beneficial to identify the position title of the person having the authority to activate the plan at each level, the anticipated ICS positions to be activated, and the notifications to be made when a particular level is activated. For example, in the event of a National Weather Service issuance of a tornado watch, the administrator on duty or nursing supervisor has the authority to activate the EOP to Level 4. The incident commander would be activated, and notifications would be made to the administrator on call, emergency department charge nurse, department managers, and security. By articulating parameters for the various levels of plan activation and using them routinely, hospital personnel and incident command staff develop a better understanding of what's expected of them during an emergency. Thus, the focus of preparedness shifts from being incident-oriented to being results-oriented. Each department should also develop procedures for their staff to follow depending upon the EOP activation level. These procedures should ideally be spelled out on a one-page Department Emergency Operations Plan, or DEOP, posted in a location that affords the best visibility for staff to review on a regular basis and accessible during EOP activation. Utilizing EOP activation protocols creates a more resilient organization that is better able to adapt to the varying challenges and contingencies that occur during an emergency. As a result, consistency in response is established, staff behavior and activities are better managed, and expectations are established and more easily understood. Establishing EOP activation levels also gives the incident commander a basis in which to direct staff and resources more efficiently. Important to the timely and smooth activation of ICS is the clear placement of authority and responsibility on a single position that is physically present in the hospital at all times. When a potential impact event arises, the time needed to locate the person in authority may be limited or non-existent. Therefore, this position must be clearly identifiable and accessible on a 24-hour basis. Many older plans placed this responsibility on the chief executive or hospital emergency manager. However, these individuals are often busy or out of the facility. Authority for EOP activation must always rest with the position physically present on the campus and available around the clock and trained in the use of ICS. This authority is commonly assigned to an administrator or nursing supervisor on duty. These individuals are generally instantly accessible to the organization during their assigned shifts. Planners must be specific in identifying the person with authority for EOP activation during every shift, since it may not be the person who has normal administrative authority. It should be clear that this is in no way an attempt to usurp the authority of senior leadership. Rather, it is a delegation of their authority that achieves the greater goal of an expedited EOP activation process, resource mobilization, and event response. As General George S. Patton once said, "A good plan now is better than a perfect plan too late." The ED charge nurse or nursing manager is typically in the best position to initiate the EOP activation process when an incident or current circumstances meet activation criteria. This determination will most likely arise from the unexpected arrival of multiple patients or contaminated casualties, an event notification received from a public safety source warning of the impending arrival of multiple patients, or the outbreak of a disturbance, fire, or unusual situation in the ED. In addition, the ED charge nurse or nursing manager can implement the ICS, act as the incident commander, and direct the immediate activation of the casualty care unit leader to oversee triage, establishment of treatment areas, and the tracking of patients as needed. At the earliest opportunity, the ED charge nurse or nursing manager should contact the incident commander designee identified in the EOP and notify the switchboard of the event. When the contacted incident commander arrives, the acting incident commander can initiate a transfer of command and in many cases will be assigned the role of operations section chief. The new incident commander should obtain a briefing from the casualty care unit leader and activate the EOP at an appropriate level if they determine it is needed. When the EOP is activated, the first task should always be the establishment of the command function. This usually means the assignment of an incident commander and an immediate situation size-up. That assessment may result in the expansion of the incident command system to include the activities and resources necessary to manage the incident. This assessment may also necessitate the need to establish a command center. According to NIMS, the Incident Command Post, or ICP, is located at or in the immediate vicinity of the incident site and is the focal point for the conduct of direct, on-scene control of tactical operations. There is generally only one ICP for each incident or event, but it may change locations during the event. Every incident or event must have some form of an incident command post. The ICP may be located in a vehicle, trailer, tent, or within a building. The ICP will be positioned outside of the present and potential hazard zone, but close enough to the incident to maintain command. An Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, is a central command and control facility responsible for carrying out emergency management functions at a strategic level. An EOC is responsible for the strategic overview or big picture of the disaster and does not normally directly control field assets. The common functions of all EOCs are to collect, gather, and analyze data, make decisions that protect life and property, and maintain continuity of the organization. The Incident Command Post may perform local emergency operations center-like functions in the context of smaller jurisdictions or less complex incident scenarios. In the hospital setting, the Incident Command Post is commonly referred to as the Hospital Command Center, or HCC, the location from which the incident commander oversees all incident operations. The incident commander may elect to activate a virtual or actual HCC. A virtual HCC is a structured communications arrangement between hospital incident management team members who are not physically co-located. In a virtual HCC arrangement, the IC and any activated command staff and section chiefs establish and maintain communication via a designated communications network, such as a telephone, radio, or intranet, rather than mobilizing in a physical HCC location. The virtual HCC is typically utilized for an alert, notification, or minor impact event, such as EOP Activation Level 4 or 3. An actual HCC is established for any moderate or major impact event, such as EOP Activation Level 2 or 1, or when the conditions permitting a virtual HCC cannot be met or maintained. The actual HCC provides the distinct advantages of shortening lines of communication, avoiding reliance on technology for command and control actions, improving access to information, and hastening the decision-making process. When activated, an actual HCC should be operational within 15 minutes of the activation decision. Hospital Command Center access should be restricted to credentialed command and general staffs and other administrative and support positions as activated. It may be helpful to assign an HCC manager whose responsibility is to ensure the facility and its components are working properly and the necessary equipment and supplies are available. Sufficient space should be available to allow various teams to work effectively and efficiently and to allow both private and group discussions. Seating arrangements should strive to maximize communications and eye contact between decision-makers. Under some circumstances, the HCC may become a unified command post composed of hospital, jurisdictional, and emergency response agency staff operating on the hospital's campus. Generally, the administrator or nursing supervisor on duty activates the EOP and therefore use of the incident command system. These individuals, however, may not necessarily assume initial command. Under ICS, this authority can be delegated to someone closer to the incident, such as the charge nurse in the emergency department. For some events, initiation of ICS may not require activation of any position beyond the incident commander. As the event progresses or as further needs arise, the incident commander can choose to activate additional ICS positions. For example, a hospital receives an alert about a multiple vehicle collision with 10 critically injured patients potentially being transported to the emergency department. The ED knows that this does not assure that 10 injured people will actually arrive. The nursing supervisor is notified. She activates the Emergency Operations Plan at Level 4 and assumes command, therefore becoming the incident commander. Her responsibility is to monitor the situation and plan for escalation. The incident commander appoints the ED nursing manager to become the medical care branch director and to prepare for activation of the casualty care unit if patients actually begin arriving. In turn, as they prepare for patients, the newly appointed medical care branch director briefs staff and distributes HICS packets to staff leaders. These packets consist of vests, clipboards, job action sheets, and other useful tools for HICS activation. Because this hospital has pre-designated HICS unit leaders and those tasks are noted on the ED assignment board, everyone knows their HICS position and can quickly fill their role. The first arriving ambulances bring 4 major trauma patients from the motor vehicle collision. The casualty care unit is immediately activated and made operational by the medical care branch director. The urgent need for radiology, surgery, trauma, and anesthesia services is now apparent. Since an event with 4 major trauma patients meets the criteria for Level 3 activation at this facility, several departments including security, community relations, surgery, and ICU are notified, and the incident commander briefs hospital leaders on the situation. The IC sets a schedule for updates, directs any actions that are immediately necessary, obtains the status on beds and resources, and awaits an update from the medical care branch director on further actions needed. Anticipating media inquiries and an influx of family members, the safety officer and public information officer positions are activated. The incident commander remains in control of the entire organization, while the medical care branch director manages the ED activities. The overall impact to the organization has been minimal. If more patients arrive or the situation worsens, the ICS can be readily expanded to meet any additional needs. It is determined that no further patients are inbound and the existing cases are managed, so the ICS can be scaled back or de-escalated. For instance, The safety and public information officers can be released to normal duties as the IC determines that those functions are no longer needed. The increased trauma capabilities are demobilized and most staff returns to business as usual. The command function stays activated for the time being, but will rapidly return to normal duties as well. An after-action review is scheduled for the end-of-shift meeting in the ED. Large incidents or ones which require activation of the ICS over more than one normal shift will require that the leadership of the command function be transferred. It is also possible that the needs of the incident require that a more experienced or specialized IC assume command. Leadership of other parts of the ICS structure will also require transition. Transferring leadership should always follow a clear process, including information exchange and coordination of plans, as well as situation and resource status. Leadership should never be in question by anyone associated with the incident. All incident particulars, staffing concerns, resources, and plans should be communicated between the incoming and outgoing leaders at every level. ICS is a temporary organizational structure implemented to manage events that are having an impact on a hospital's ability to provide care. Before putting any emergency plan into action, an organization must describe the conditions required for its activation. This activation can be tiered to scale the appropriate response to the incident's impact. These tiers can range from simple notification without direct impact all the way to major disasters that affect the entire facility. A fairly low threshold for activation allows for constant implementation on smaller events, which helps ICS users become familiar with the principles of incident management and makes them more effective for larger incidents. Upon activation, the first step is establishing the command function and assigning an incident commander. The IC does a rapid size-up and determines the resources needed to manage the incident. Further activation of other ICS sections and mobilization of resources may follow. As the incident comes under control, the ICS is de-escalated and resources demobilized. The incident command system is eventually terminated, and it is always important to have an after-action review. In order for ICS to be successful, all staff must cooperate in accepting new lines of authority and functions that may be outside of normal operating conditions.